Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Tonight, I wanted to talk to you about the cool, fun stuff that the language barrier that seems to be happening with the left or politicians or people that aren't in the know in the 2A. If you've paid attention to the culture war in general, you've noticed that there are opponents of the left of the 2A who are big fans of manipulating language. The newest buzz term they're using is assault pistol. So let's break down what some of the language barriers we have for you leftists that find my podcast, and for those of you who are trying to bring tyranny to the American people. Maybe if nothing else, this educates you into how to speak to people in the 2A, because you keep making really large assumptions and making conclusions based off of what you've heard and seen in movies without actually doing some research. And like most things in life, the 2A will bite you in the butt if you don't know anything about it. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy complaining on the internet that likes guns. And I've tried to get into trying to build a brand, trying to build this stuff up just mostly to advocate for the 2A. So the first thing, that definition of an assault weapon is. The U.S. Army defines the assault weapon. By the way, this definition comes from Wikipedia, so it's not 100% when I say for a source, because I don't like using Wikipedia. But since most people look at Wikipedia and say, oh yeah, that's cool, I thought I would use this because it highlights the language very carefully. It says it must be capable of select fire. That means every gun in the United States that has been made after 1986 cannot be used in this fashion. It doesn't have this feature. An AR-15, the gun of war, the gun that doesn't belong on the street, they say, is not capable of full automatic fire. Assault weapons, by definition, have to be fully automatic. Okay, or have select fire capability. The next thing they need to have is an intermediate cartridge. For those of you not in the know, this isn't a full rifle-powered cartridge. This is an intermediate cartridge. The idea and design, leftist, was that you could get basically the same function and capability of a smaller, more compact cartridge, giving you the performance of a large rifle. And what that means is you could carry more ammunition in the field. That's why this became popular, because larger rifles are capable of extreme distances. And that's not necessary in mobile combat. That's what they were finding out in World War II. That's what we found out in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, we've started going backwards in our line of thought and started thinking we need an actual rifle-powered cartridge. Okay. Half the guns on the registry right now on the gun ban list that the leftist, or that, I'm not even going to call them leftists, the turncoats are wanting to perpetrate tyranny on the American people are after, fall into another category entirely. See that line in here where it says select fire rifles such as the Fedorov Automat, the FNFAL, the M14, and the HKG-3. These are considered battle rifles. Now, I didn't look at the definition of the battle rifle because I know what it is. It means that they're using like a 308, a 30-06, something more than a 223 or a 5.56 or 7.62x39 or 300 Blackout. This list goes on and on and on and on and on. But why is that important? A battle rifle, a lot of American hunters use them for hunting big game because of the cartridge and because they want rapid follow-up shots. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. The Second Amendment is about defending yourself and trying to defend your country from tyranny. Now, when Joe Biden likes to say that you need an F-15 and nukes, well, I have, and most people in the 2A understand this argument I'm about to give. Did the Vietnamese need F-15s or nukes? Did the Afghanis need F-16s or F-15s and nukes, because they seem to have either got us to a stalemate or kicked our ass the hell out of the country. Now, that's because of the ROE. We honestly could have perpetrated or prosecuted those wars any way, but it would have cost a lot of civilian lives. So there's already a mismatch in your way of thinking if you think that an assault rifle is anything bigger than a 5.56 or a 7.62 by 39. They're not. And the M14, the FAL, specifically the HK G3, because I don't know what it is about the ATF and gun banners, they have a hard-on for anything that goes that HK builds. Any of their designs, anyone else who's copied them, they go after those rifles hard and heavy. I know, I've seen it, it makes no sense. That's why HK doesn't love Americans as much as we love them. That and the German government, who owns Rheinmetall, who is basically HK, they don't like exporting firearms because they are, well, sissies compared to Americans. Let's just be blunt. I love my German friends, but when it comes to an actual fight, they'll roll over in the first chance they get, because there's no way in hell nowadays that they want to be anywhere near where they were in their past. The next thing, it has to have a box-fed magazine. Not a clip, a box-fed magazine. Why is that important? A box-fed magazine is a fairly newer invention. And I say detachable box-fed magazine. Box-fed magazines aren't new. The K98 technically has a box-fed magazine. It's internal to the gun. But they are new. Why do American shooters, why do any shooter like box-fed or modern-style rifles? It's because technology advances. If you've ever fired an old-fashioned bolt-action or lever-action rifle, first thing you notice is there's a recoil differential. Recoil matters. There's also a weight differential. Modern materials are lighter than old-school steel and old-school wood, and that makes a difference if you're in country like I am, in the backwoods. Hunting in New Mexico, you can have rain, snow, sleet, wind, heat, all in the same day, all within an hour of each other, because New Mexico weather's cool like that. But specifically, I have seen and I have used AKs and AR-15s to drop New Mexican mule deer. I've told you about my brother shooting one with an AR-15 in a 5.56 when you could. Nowadays, I would use something like a 7.62 by 39, 6.5 Grendel, 6.8 SPC. All those are branded as, how would you put it, scary assault weapons. But as we're seeing here, they don't fit the definition. The number one reason why they don't fit the definition is they're not selective fire. They never will be, because they won't give the American people back their rights to allow that. But as you can tell, the military can leave 500 million or 500 billion or whatever the hell it was in Afghanistan for our enemies, but they won't allow the American people to have to be put on the same footing. Why is that? Because they know they're going to rub us wrong, and there's some of us that are going to have issues with it, and there's some of us that are going to say no. And the fact that all you guys that are our enemies, you shouldn't be, don't understand one very thing. Us people in the 2A, we've been protecting you your entire life. You don't even know it. I'm not talking about the CCW guys behind you in the grocery store lines. I'm talking about the guys. The government is afraid to go door to door because they know there's going to be a gun nut that says no. And we've already had tragedies where people have been shot because the government came to enforce their laws and the person wasn't able to hear them comply. This is a problem, and this is where we keep going. Let's talk about the funny stuff when we come to clips, magazines, and suppressors. So what is a clip? In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see an M-block clip for an M1 Garand. It's an 8-shot piece of metal, band basically, that holds 8 rounds together so you can feed it in the gun. Okay. These are not high capacity. These are not clips. I mean, this is a clip. The magazine next to it is a factory magazine that if you go to Glock.com, they will actually sell it to you as a factory Glock magazine. What does that tell you? Technically, this is a 30-round magazine. For a pistol, the left likes to say that's high capacity. For anyone that shoots that doesn't want to reload these because maybe they hurt their thumbs or maybe they just want to have fun, it's not my business. That alone tells you this is not high capacity. If it was high capacity or the industry used high capacity, they would label it. Point of fact, it'd probably be some law. But there isn't one. And when you start talking about high capacity magazines, have you looked into the subject? In New Mexico, House Bill 9 is trying to go after high capacity magazines. That magazine on the far right. Why? Because it holds more than 10 or 9 rounds. Okay? They do not make a factory magazine for a pistol or a rifle. They do for rifles. They make 5-round magazines. But for a pistol, they do not make a modern pistol in any guise that holds 9 rounds. I don't know how they came up with that arbitrary number, but it's more draconian than anyone, except for Oregon. Now let's talk about suppressors. Now the movies have done their awesome magic, and a lot of people believe that suppressors make that pew or thoop sound. They can, but you have to do a lot of tuning to the gun. One, because the gun actually makes noise because of its mechanisms. And number 2, and most importantly, the load you're using in the gun. Most rifle rounds and pistol rounds nowadays travel at hypersonic speeds. Okay? What that means is anything above Mach or anything above 1,000 feet a second. Now, what does that mean? It means there's going to be an audible crack and a boom, a sonic boom generated by the round as it exits the muzzle. What does a suppressor do? Not a silencer, a suppressor. It makes it slightly more quiet for those high-end rounds that are actually going their normal speed, but it quiets it just like a muffler on your car. Doesn't silence it because the muffler on your car isn't silent, right? It quiets it. This is a benefit to most shooters. You wear hearing protection, I hope, because I didn't, and that's why I'm not doing what I wanted to do in my life, which is I wanted to join the Marine Corps and go all the way. And I made an effort, and I didn't go very far because my hearing gave out. Had I used these when I was shooting with my dad all the time, maybe my hearing would be better than what it is now. As you can tell, they don't make it 100% silent because you still need hearing protection if you're using standard rounds with this thing. Makes it slightly quieter so that it doesn't blow your eardrums if your hearing protection slips. But it's far from being silent. Let's talk about... I'm sorry I'm laughing. In the news, they talk about the gun show loophole. Having worked a gun show last weekend, I never saw anyone come to a booth, and I was selling guns, and so, Lance was selling guns, not me, and say, I don't want to buy a gun, or I want to buy a gun, and I don't want to do a background check. And the first time that happened, because it did happen where someone tried to do that to Lance, and Lance politely said, no. I'm an FFL. I have to comply. I don't know who you are. This is our safety check to make sure you're not a turd. I have never seen anyone in years. Now, when I say years, when I was a little kid, you could walk up to someone who was carrying a rifle or a pistol, make arrangements to walk out with it. Nowadays, everyone's leery and everybody's afraid that they're going to have to go to jail. Nowadays, they will go find an FFL, pay the fee, and have a background check ran. So, the gun show loophole doesn't exist. Let's talk about round counts. Now, I'm laughing or smiling again because you see in the news, in the mass media, this person had 1,000 rounds for this rifle. They were planning to do a lot of damage. Now, that could be true. Talk to your average shooter. When I'm gainfully employed, I shoot every weekend. And I take my boys and my daughter shooting every weekend. And I take friends shooting every weekend. And that doesn't sound like a big thing, but I took 3 kids out once with 1,000 rounds, and it lasted an hour. And I walked out of there with 2 rounds. Kids lose track. And you buy ammunition, and it's expensive. I'll give you that. But 1,000 rounds is not a high round count. 20,000, 100,000, that's closer to the round count I would hope to have one day. Why? Because I shoot. And most people in this sport, or most people in this hobby, whatever you want to call it, leftists like to call it a hobby. It's not just a hobby. It's a way of life for a lot of us. And shooting every weekend makes sense. Keeps the skills sharp, gets you some exercise. I've lost weight training doing it. I plan on getting back to doing it as I get employed again or as I spin up my business. This is a big thing for me. It's something I've always done. And during the COVID stuff, I got even more active. I started running courses. I started looking for research. I started watching things I never thought I would. Now, I've always known about Sonny Pazikis, and I like him, and he's motivating me, and so is Eric July, to lose weight, to work out, because that's good for you. But the gun is just a tool, as Sonny says. It's not the weapon. You are. Well, I need to be a reflection of how much of a weapon I really am. And I'm out of shape, but I'm working on that. Let's talk about arsenals. Along with the high round count, the enemies of the 2A like to talk about arsenals. And you hear in the news, they talk about, oh, this kid had 3 guns, or this bad guy, this criminal had 3 guns. 3 guns is not an arsenal. Maybe for someone who's not into guns, it is. But I can tell you right now, I have a hell of a lot more than 3 guns. And with the American population somewhere around 330 million, and there's something like 450 million guns in the United States, I know I'm not the only one with multiple firearms. That said, think about that. There's enough firearms here to hand out to every man, woman, and child that's living in the United States. Some people say that's a problem. I see that as insurance that the government doesn't go try to do more stupid stuff, because there is going to be a point in time that people say no. Now, I hope they do it peacefully. I hope the government listens. That's not always the case. So these are the biggest language busters I saw. The other one I thought was hilarious, and this comes from Newsweek.com. Does the military use AR-15s in combat? Because this is a weapon of war, right? The AR-15. Their answer from Newsweek.com. The AR-15 has loomed large since the ban expired. The rifle is not used by the U.S. military and instead is a semi-automatic version. They don't put version in there. They just say of the M16, which is still in use and this was dated May 31st, 2022. That's correct. The AR-15 is a derivative of the M16. Remember back the first part of this presentation, or this little talk that we're having here, where they said you had to select fire? The AR-15 doesn't have that capability. It doesn't have those pieces parts. Neither does a civilian AK. Okay? They hate modern sporting rifles, is what they're called in the normal community. And that's because you're capable of firing off more than one round at a time. Oh, well, not at a time, with one trigger pull. But you have a fast follow-up shot, or faster follow-up shot. And it depends on the shooter how fast your rate of fire actually is. A little bit of practice, you could probably make the YouTube sensors go, holy crap. Or any sensor go, holy crap. Because they don't know if it's you or the gun. Look at Donut Operator. Look at Brandon Herrera. Look at Mac, Military Arms. Look at the gun tubers. Look at them all. If they wanted to perpetrate or act like they're shooting fully automatic, they can do it. And they have done it just for shits and giggles. Look at Tim at Military Arms Channel. He's the one I'm thinking of. Mike at Mr. Guns and Gears, he doesn't do that. He's usually trying to show you so you're safe and get you enough information to either buy the product or stay away from the product based on experiences he's had. He's kind of like Consumer Reports for the 2A, but he also tries to keep you informed. And where I'm making my bed with this stuff is in the politics space. I've always been a politico. I've always been a fan of the 2A, and it's my one voter issue that I am very cognizant of. The other ones, I weigh in on the ones that matter to me, but this one matters a lot because I've been shooting since I was very, very young with my dad. So it means a lot to me and my family. So, why do they talk about sensible gun control? Let's be honest. Why are enemies in the opposition of the 2A? Why do they talk about sensible gun control? Because they want to lull you into a false sense of hope that they're going to just make another rule that you'll just follow. And what ends up happening inevitably is we lose a little bit more of our rights. And it's happened time and time again. And yesterday I covered the 30-plus bills in the Federal Register to be heard or dealt with in the House or the Senate. And we have 8 or 9 locally in New Mexico that are a big thing. Now, I found out late, and I have already made an appointment tomorrow when this is supposed to happen, but any of you guys that want to go there, they're going to have a meeting at 1:30 in the Roundhouse to talk about gun bills. And this is one of those ones I wish I could get there, but I made a promise to myself to try to do this other thing, to try to get part of my business going, and that kind of matters more right now to me than anything else because I don't want to die without funds, and I don't have the audience big enough to just support myself completely. But tomorrow at 1:30, that's Tuesday, in Santa Fe, in the Roundhouse, they're going to have 3 hearings on 3 or 4 bills at once. So they've already heard about the magazine ban. They're going to go after House Bill 100 and House Bill 101, I guarantee you. This is the assault weapons ban and the wait period for firearms. They're probably going to go after the fully automatic conversion gadgets. Now, they've manipulated the language so much that I can't even tell what they were talking about till I read the bill. They're talking about bump stocks and echo triggers. Are those machine guns? No. There are multiple cases that have already been heard about bump stocks. They are an accessory. They're a piece of plastic. Same thing goes for a brace. Braced stock, that's the newest one I've heard from the media. That is not a thing. It's either a brace or it's a stock. And Glenn Beck was one of the first ones that started rattling off this stuff. And I like Glenn because he reminds me of my dad, and my dad always watched him. But he damn sure needs to get some knowledge there, especially when he calls us out for always wanting to do our own book research. He relied on someone that had no clue what the hell a brace is versus a brace stock. There's no existence. A brace is made to go around your forearm. Now, how you use it is what the ATF is pissed off about right now. Is some people put it up to their shoulder and fire the gun. Now, I don't care. I think it's a waste of anything to go after people like that. And I also think it's a waste to have a short-barreled gun and say that it's illegal. And there's multiple reasons why. Number one, it's your right to own whatever the hell you want. Number two, when you get a shorter-barreled or a rifle-actioned pistol, you've stunted the capability of what the gun is capable of doing. Look at the 5.56 and say a 10.5-inch barrel, the velocities that come out, the range it's capable of, versus a 20-inch AR. And what you'll find is you can reach those extreme distances with those rifle action pistols, but you cannot do it with enough force to make the juice worth squeezing. You're going to get more energy, less drop from a 20-inch rifle. You're going to get more ballistic potential. So it doesn't make a lot of sense that they're going after short barreled rifles, that's what they call them. I call them rifled action pistols or short-barreled shotguns. A shorter shotgun gives less range. Bigger spread, less range. Yeah, that has the potential to hurt more people because there's more stuff in the air as the round goes downrange. However, it also means that it's not going to go 300 yards or 200 yards because it's going to run out of energy before it gets there. They're looking at this the wrong way. They've been looking at this the wrong way. Ian from Forgotten Weapons covered this, saying this is a holdover when they were trying to ban pistols. Why are they trying to ban pistols? Everybody owns a pistol. If you're a homeowner and you lived through the COVID crap and the riots that happened in the Summer of Love, and you saw that they were, when people called and they said, we can't help you, we have other things to do. The thought came to mind, what do I do if I actually need help? And I'm chuckling because that wasn't a thought I ever worried about. I don't want riots to come to my home because I don't want to have to do what I'd have to do. Let's just be honest. If you're in the rural parts of New Mexico or rural parts of the United States and trouble comes knocking on your door en masse, your neighbors and yourself are probably going to deal with it before the cops come, and it's not going to be good. I'm not saying it's MAGA country. We just have standards that you don't have in cities. We will not protest the same way you do. We will not burn stuff because we have this love and understanding of private property rights. All rights are derived from private property rights. I don't care what communists say. Without private property rights, you cannot have the American experience. And anything you are demonizing the American experience, and I'm not down with that. So sensible gun control is only after getting rid of it. Let's be honest. That's what the left wants. That's what our enemies want. They want you to not have accessibility to firearms that the government deems scary. Food for thought. Here's some ammunition to throw back at the opponents of the 2A and say, hey, you got some problems with your language. Why don't you look up some stuff and get into research because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And like you tell us all the time, because we can say something that you disagree with about COVID or about guns or whatever. Language matters. And this is one of those places that you can't change the language because it's been established for hundreds of years now. And you can call a magazine or a clip, but learn the difference, especially if you're a friend of the 2A, because it makes you look like an idiot when you say clip. Like, share, subscribe, rumble, and be great.